Many thanks for staying with us. If you're just joining us, you're watching the news at 10, live on Channels Television. A reminder of our major stories. 4 persons confirmed killed by suspected herdsmen in southern Kaduna as state government condemns attack and vows to prosecute the perpetrators. 24 hours after their capture, 2 of the 4 policemen declared missing in Benue State returned to their base safe and sound. Federal government resumes second phase of the trial of suspected Boko Haram members in a detention center in Niger State. And 71 persons are dead after a Russian airliner crashed shortly after takeoff from an airport in Moscow. For more on our top stories and others, just go to our website. It's channelstv.com and on youtube.com/channelsweb. Log on to m.channelstv.com to watch us on your mobile device or download the Channels TV app for Android, iOS and Windows devices from their respective stores. And there's more. The Channels TV and Channels 24 app will give you access to news and updates. You also have the Eyewitness feature with which you can share those pictures, videos or news of happenings around you. Just install the app, then tap and swipe to reveal the menu and follow the instructions. And here are some of the pictures you sent into our Eyewitness portal today. Let's begin with this image showing the Ogijo stretch of the old Lagos-Shagamu Expressway being constructed by the Ogun State government. The person who sent this in is pleased by this development and hopes the work is completed as soon as possible. And this next image is from Kajola along the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway showing this transformer, which according to our eyewitness is yet to be powered. He laments the hardship residents have to go through in the absence of power and is calling on the relevant authorities to come to their aid. And this photo is from Inyi Ward in Oji River Local Council area of Enugu State, showing these people whom our eyewitness reporter says are registering for their voter cards. He's impressed by the turnout of the people for the exercise, but has a bone to pick with the logistics of the electoral officers, who he says leaves much to be desired and it needs to be improved. Finally is this picture from Sokoto in Sokoto State showing a man carrying a camel inside a tricycle. Our eyewitness reporter is of the opinion that some drivers don't know that every abuse of road safety poses danger not only to the driver and his vehicle, but to other road users as well. So they need to be more careful. And we have more political stories now. The ruling All Progressives Congress, APC, has won all the 44 local government areas of Kano State, northwest Nigeria. The chairman of the state's Independent Electoral Commission, Professor Galba Sheka, informed journalists that the election was peaceful, although the figures are yet to be provided, stating exactly what each candidate scored.
Kano people are fond of electing government in power. Probably that is why the 44 acts that was led by the chicken were hashed completely without any deviant. The first time from the university, I commented seriously against the 2014 election when the ruling party cleared all the local government. I was in the university then holding marker. I commented a lot in most of the media, including BBC. So when 2015 election came, you know, the State Electoral Commission were being accused of rigging, being in the pocket of government. So when the 2015 election was conducted by the almighty INEC with the almighty card reader, the governor, the 3 senators, all members of reps, all members of the State Assembly, all were hatched by one party. Not a single one deviant. So I changed my mind then, that if it was rigging by the State Electoral Commission, then we did not blame INEC rigging 2015 election. But overwhelmingly, generally, 100%, a single party cleared Kano. So probably it's a habit of Kano people to vote government in power. But Our task after this election is to launch research to find out why people of Kano, probably despite offenses by government in power, despite neglect, the so-called neglect, why are they still voting the government in power?
From politics to energy matters now, the federal government has begun the implementation of the Energizing Economies initiative, beginning from Kano State. That is a project which is aimed at taking 4 big markets and major economic centers in Nigeria off the national grid and powering their activities with clean and stable electricity. The Managing Director of the Rural Electrification Agency, Mrs. Damilola Ogunbiyi, explained that the project will also get to Abia and Lagos State.
This is the Abubakar Rimi market in Kano, which has suffered several fire incidents over the years, and goods worth billions of naira have been lost as a result.
The executive governor of Kano State declared this place.
Government is now taking a step toward addressing the incessant fire incident in the market, which has over 12,000 shops, by deploying clean energy in the form of solar energy to about 500 shops in the first phase of the Energizing Economies initiative. The Managing Director of the Rural Electrification Agency, which is driving the initiative, Damilola Ogunbiyi, leads representatives of the Kano State government around the market to witness the operations of the initiative.
That's one of the reasons why the federal government under the President General Buhari decided to choose this market was because of the horrendous fire that they suffered in 2016. So the goals between himself and His Excellency the Governor of Kano is to make this market generator free, to be using clean energy, so we won't have those unfortunate incidents of fire hazards again that burn so many goods in the market and cost so much money.
The market, which had been disconnected from the national grid, only getting power from multiple diesel power generation sources, would now gradually shift to using solar power to undertake its activities. This is a welcome development for the traders, who had trooped out in their thousands to witness the innovation.
This power you see here and the fan are all being supplied by them already. So what we are expecting is a saner or an improved business environment, less hazards because there is no pollution from solar power generation, unlike before when there were so many small bits and pieces of generating sets.
According to the Rural Electrification Agency, the market has a load demand of 916 kilowatts. 6,000 shops will be connected in the second phase, while the balance would be done in the third phase. The agency hopes to fully connect the entire market to solar power by the last quarter of 2018.
The call for a review of Nigeria's Federation Accounts Allocation Committee sharing formula is recently being re-echoed by some concerned citizens in different quota, though often attributed to different reasons. The latest agitation is not unconnected to the inability of state governments to pay workers' salaries. In this next report, Channel's business correspondent Tempo Ashaju digs into the precedent of the review.
Nigeria's Federation Accounts Allocation Committee is the body responsible for the disbursement of funds to the 3 tiers of government. The committee is chaired by the Minister of Finance, with members including the Accountants General of the Federation, States Commissioners of Finance, as well as their Accountants Generals, and representatives from major revenue-generating agencies of government. The country's current sharing formula gives the federal government 52.68%, while state governments earn 26.72%, and the local government councils receive 20.60% payable into state government accounts. Over time, this structure has been greeted with periodic agitation for review, mainly from the state and local governments, where governors struggle to pay workers' salaries and civil servants' misery index worsens. Agitations for a downward review of the federal government's allocation has hardly been successful. Historically, the objection is hinged on enormous responsibility of the government on energy, internal security, pension of police and the armed forces, while state governments are challenged to prop up their internally generated revenues. The 1999 Constitution confers the power to review the allocation formula periodically on the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission. The arrangement was last reviewed in 1992, but became the result of a modification order issued in 2004. Mid-2017, the 8th Senate of the National Assembly described the existing arrangements as archaic and calls for a review of the formula. While the call is in line with constitutional provisions, past records have shown that a review of the allocation structure is usually difficult to come by. Temple Ashaju, Channels Television News.
To discuss more about this, we're being joined by Channels Television's data analyst, Mr. Babajide Ogunsowo. Thank you so much for coming on the news at 10.
Good evening, Melinda.
Now, with just a year to the general election, so many debates have been coming up. There's been fiscal federalism, resource control, and now the third for states to have more share of the pie. They want more revenue, and it has begun. Now, let's look at the timing, Babajide. Is that anything unusual about it, or is it normal?
It's quite unusual, and there's some part that is also a bit normal. But thinking about this, it reminds me of what had happened several decades ago, and that's when I was in school. Even though I'm good in maths, I've really never been good in chemistry. But here's what I know about having water at the same level, and it is that today we're in a situation where this is the state government and this is the federal government, and we keep pouring the water in between. So today, it's some water into the glass of the federal government. Tomorrow, it's some water into the glass of the state government. But whatever happens, and no matter how much we keep moving this around, the quantity of water will not increase. So here's what we need to do. We need to find a way of increasing the quantity of water rather than we keep focusing on the formula. Just yesterday, I was in the middle with two professors of history. One of them said, Jide, this problem started 7 decades ago. He referred to the 1946 Richards Constitution, that it all started when we had the regional assembly. That's when the focus was on sharing. The other professor cut in and said, no. He referred to the Littleton Constitution of 1954. He says that was when we had the premiers, and the premiers so much focused on revenue sharing as well. Now, after the discussion, we all agreed that all of that was an error. But again, as a wise man once said, an error only becomes a mistake if we refuse to correct it. And so did we correct it in 1960? No, we didn't. If you pick up the 1960 Constitution, Melinda, you'll find expenditure 15 times, only one mention of savings. That isn't also too different from the 1999 Constitution, where it's all about spending. Spend. 21 mentions of expenditure in the 1999 Constitution, only one mention of savings. Here's what it all means. In what the layman calls chop and quench, what we focused on is how do we keep spending money when the focus should be on how do we increase the money. So today there's some discussion about the states requesting for more share of the allocation. They want more than 27%. They
want more beyond salaries.
They want more because of what is perceived as the benefits that getting more will give them. So let's look at 3 myths.
Okay.
3 myths of them wanting more. The first myth is that if they get more money, it will improve welfare. But is that accurate? Now, we have evidence that that is only a myth, because the evidence shows us today that there are 4 types of states. In one quadrant of the mix is Lagos State, one of the states that's gotten high revenue from the federal allocation and has also been able to ensure that poverty is low. So 89 billion naira in federal allocation last year. High revenue, low poverty in the first quadrant. Now we have another state that has also gotten relatively a lot of money. Among several states, other states in that quadrant, Katsina State got approximately 46 billion naira in revenue last year. But again, high revenue and high poverty. Katsina State got more money than 27 states last year. But again, Katsina is among those 10 states that are classified as the most poor. So even though it had a lot of revenue, poverty is still high. Then we also have within another quadrant, a state like Gombe, that also argues that because it's gotten relatively low revenue, poverty is high.
So you're saying that it does affect the man on the street at the end of the day?
It does affect the man on the street, but the evidence shows that getting more money does not necessarily improve the poverty rates of states. Look at Osun State. Despite all the problems, Osun State currently has the lowest poverty rate in Nigeria, even though it got the least amount of money from federal allocation. So there's no direct correlation between getting more money and lowering poverty.
Babajide, now let's wrap this up. Is there any perfect or ideal formula that will make the federal, state, and local governments happy?
There's no perfect or ideal formula, but what is perfect is to focus less on the formula and focus more on the revenue. And if you don't remember anything else, Melinda, remember this. I would rather take 1% of 1 billion naira than take 100% of 1 million naira. Let's focus more on making more money than sharing all the money.
Okay, thank you so much, Channels Television's data analyst, Babajide Ogunsowo. And when the news at 10 returns, 32-year-old fast food restaurant Mr. Biggs hosts its first food festival in Lagos. Join us again.